They laughed the second I opened my mouth. Not a big laugh, not the kind that owns the room, just that soft, careless chuckle people make when they think they've already figured you out, the kind that says, "Oh, this is going to be one of those meetings." I remember pausing just for half a breath, my sentence hanging there unfinished. The glass conference table reflected all of us back like a mirror I didn't ask for. Suits, laptops, smiles that didn't reach the eyes, and me, sitting there with my notebook closed, my accent still warm on my tongue. "Sorry," one of them said, leaning back in his chair, fingers steepled like he'd practiced that pose in the mirror. "Could you repeat that? Maybe slower." Another man smirked. Someone else laughed again, louder this time. I smiled. Not because it was funny, because sometimes a smile is the cleanest way to buy yourself time. I'd walked into that room calm, prepared, grounded. By the time they laughed, I realized something important had shifted. I wasn't being evaluated anymore. I'd been quietly disqualified. See, I've lived with this accent my whole life. It's softened over the years, picked up edges, lost others. But it's still there, a trace of where I come from, of how my mother spoke of nights spent translating myself long before I ever translated numbers. I know how it lands on certain ears. I've seen the looks. I've heard the jokes dressed up as feedback. But this room was different. This wasn't a classroom or a cocktail party. This was supposed to be a serious meeting, capital allocation, growth strategy, future decisions. Grown people. Important people. Apparently important people still laugh. "Go on," the man said, waving his hand like I'd interrupted him instead of the other way around. "We just want to make sure we're all on the same page." On the same page, right. I finished my point. Clean. Precise. Numbers don't care about accents, and I've always trusted numbers to tell the truth when people won't. I talked about risk exposure, customer churn, how their expansion model looked strong on paper but leaked money in places they weren't measuring. They nodded. Some of them. Others stared at their screens. And when I finished, the silence sat there for a moment, uncomfortable, unclaimed. Then someone else spoke. He repeated my idea, almost word for word. Different voice, different face, no accent. "That's exactly what I've been saying," another guy chimed in. "We need tighter controls." They praised him, built on it, took it somewhere new. No one looked at me. That's when I stopped talking. I didn't fold my arms. I didn't check my phone. I just leaned back and watched. I watched who interrupted who. I watched how quickly respect shifted depending on who held the floor. I watched how easily confidence got confused for competence. And I thought, so this is how you decide who matters. There was one woman across the table who caught my eye just for a second. She didn't laugh earlier. She didn't speak up either. Her mouth tightened when the joke landed. Not enough to change the moment, but enough to tell me she felt it too. That look stayed with me. The meeting dragged on. Charts, forecasts, a lot of noise dressed up as certainty. At one point, the same man who'd asked me to speak slower leaned toward another executive and whispered something. They laughed again, quieter this time, private, like they were letting me know the joke wasn't for me anymore. Funny thing is, that was the moment my irritation drained away. Because irritation assumes you need something from the people disrespecting you. I didn't. Near the end of the meeting, they reached the part everyone had been waiting for: funding approval. Big decision, big smiles, big assumptions. So the chair said, clasping his hands, "We'll need final authorization before we move forward." There it was. I felt every eye move, scanning the room, searching for the usual names, the usual power centers. Someone mentioned a committee. Someone else mentioned timing. I cleared my throat. Not loudly, just enough. "That authorization," I said evenly, "comes through me." The room didn't go silent right away. At first there was confusion. Polite, practiced confusion. Someone frowned at their tablet. Another executive leaned closer to his screen, scrolling faster than necessary. "I'm sorry," the chair said, blinking. "You said—" I met his eyes. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't soften it either. I said I repeated that decision as mine. The laughter was gone now, replaced by something far more interesting: calculation. One by one they checked their information. Names connected, numbers aligned. I watched realization move across their faces like bad weather. No one apologized, not yet. Pride takes time to swallow. The man who'd mocked my accent earlier sat up straighter, suddenly attentive. "Well, he said, forcing a smile. "This is great to finally understand your role." I nodded. "You understood my role earlier," I said. "You just didn't think it mattered." That landed. I could have said more. I could have reminded them of every moment they'd laughed, every glance, every stolen idea. I didn't. Because here's the thing, revenge is loud. Dignity doesn't need volume. They tried to recover. Compliments followed, invitations, a sudden interest in my background, my journey, my unique perspective. I listened. Politely. Briefly. Then I stood up. The chair scraped softly against the floor. That sound, small, ordinary, felt louder than any speech I could have given. "I'll have my office follow up," I said, gathering my notebook. "You'll receive our decision in writing." One of them opened his mouth, maybe to stop me, maybe to salvage something. I didn't wait to hear it. As I walked out, sunlight poured through the glass hallway, washing the room behind me into reflections and noise. My reflection passed along the windows, still me, same accent, same face, same history. Nothing about me had changed. What changed was what they could no longer ignore. Later that night, alone in my apartment, I finally let the weight of it settle. Not triumph, something quieter, something steadier. I thought about all the rooms I'd been laughed out of before I ever learned how to stay. All the times I'd gone home replaying conversations, wondering if I should have sounded different, been different. I thought about how close I'd come once to sanding myself down just to fit. I'm glad I didn't. Because money doesn't make people respect you. It just forces honesty. It exposes who listens only when there's something to gain, and who never learn to listen at all. My accent didn't disappear that day. It never will, and I don't want it to. It reminds me where I started. And it reminds me that sometimes the people laughing the loudest are the ones who understand the least. So let me ask you something, and really think about it before you answer. When someone dismisses you because of how you sound, how you look, or where you're from, do you think they're judging your worth or revealing their own?